Today, we're talking about one of the strangest career stories in Hollywood, Jessica Alba. Because here's the thing, almost everybody likes Jessica Alba. She was beautiful, charismatic, incredibly famous, and for a few years it looked like she was destined to become one of Hollywood's biggest stars. And yet, somehow, it never happened. Instead of becoming the next Julia Roberts or Angelina Jolie, Alba spent much of her career bouncing between critically panned movies, forgotten TV projects, and direct-to-video releases. The question is, how did someone this famous never become a true A-list movie star? Jessica Alba's career began the way many Hollywood careers do, with tiny roles on television. One of her early appearances came on Beverly Hills 90210. Years later, Alba admitted that she hated her experience on the show. According to her, the biggest thing she remembers wasn't acting. It was being warned not to make eye contact with the main cast. Apparently, she was told that looking directly at the show's stars could get her kicked off the set. Somehow, she survived the terrifying challenge of not looking at anybody and made it through production without incident. By the late 90s, Alba had started landing roles in theatrical films. Unfortunately, those movies weren't exactly setting the world on fire. Critics hated them, audiences ignored them, and the box office numbers weren't doing her any favors. Then everything changed. In 2000, at just 18 years old, Alba landed the lead role in sci-fi series Dark Angel. Overnight, she became one of television's hottest young stars. The first season was a massive success. Magazines couldn't stop putting Alba on their covers. She was suddenly being called the breakout star of the year. Awards and nominations quickly followed, including a Golden Globe nomination. For a moment, it looked like Hollywood had found its next superstar. Then everything went wrong. The second season suffered a dramatic ratings collapse. Some blamed the aftermath of September 11th. Others pointed to a time slot change that cost the show much of its teenage audience. Whatever the reason, the damage was done. After 2 seasons, Dark Angel was canceled. And just like that, Alba's TV breakthrough was over. Now she needed to make the jump to movies. Her first post-Dark Angel project was The Sleeping Dictionary. The film received only a limited theatrical release and failed to attract much attention. Ironically, the harshest critic of the movie turned out to be Jessica Alba herself. She's repeatedly described the film as mediocre and has joked that the worst thing about it is her own performance. Not exactly the kind of confidence boost you want at the beginning of a movie career. Her next film was Honey. Originally, the lead role was supposed to go to rising music star Aaliyah. Tragically, Aaliyah was killed in a plane crash before production began, forcing the studio to delay filming and eventually cast Alba instead. The movie performed reasonably well in theaters but found its real audience on home video, where it became a big hit. At this point, Alba was building momentum, but she still wanted what every young actor in Hollywood wanted: a blockbuster franchise. In 2003, she came surprisingly close to landing 2 of them. She auditioned for Daredevil but was reportedly considered too young for the role. Then she tried for Pirates of the Caribbean. And this is where things get interesting. According to Alba, she was turned down because of her Mexican heritage. Today, a studio executive saying something like that publicly would probably need a very good lawyer by the end of the week. Fortunately for her, another opportunity arrived soon after. In 2004, Alba was cast as Sue Storm in Fantastic Four. Fox's X-Men movies were already proving that superhero franchises could be massive, and Fantastic Four was supposed to become the studio's next big comic book success story. For a moment, it looked like Alba had finally found her ticket to the Hollywood A-list. Unfortunately, things didn't quite work out that way. Fantastic Four made money, but it wasn't a phenomenon. Audiences generally liked it well enough. Critics, however, absolutely did not. Her performance earned her the first Golden Raspberry nomination. Still, 2005 turned out to be the most commercially successful year she would ever have. Fantastic Four performed well. Sin City performed well. Only Into the Blue failed to make much of an impact. The movie paired Alba with Paul Walker and became another project that she would later criticize herself for. According to Alba, the script went through so many rewrites that her character barely resembled the one she originally signed on to play. By the end of production, she felt the character had essentially become set decoration. Although, to be fair, the movie seemed pretty committed to using Jessica Alba as decoration, especially considering how much of the runtime involved her walking around in swimsuits. which leads to one of the strangest stories of Alba's career. The swimsuits in Into the Blue apparently revealed so little skin that the MPAA became concerned and threatened the film with an R rating. The studio responded by trimming some scenes and even digitally modifying Alba's swimsuit in trailers. The movie ultimately earned just $44 million worldwide on a $50 million budget. Critics hated it, and once again, Jessica Alba took most of the heat. Luckily, she had Sin City. Unlike many of her other projects, Sin City was a genuine critical success. Audiences loved it. Critics loved it. Alba even walked away with an MTV Movie Award. Finally, she had appeared in a movie that almost everyone agreed was good. The only problem was that Sin City wasn't quite the box office powerhouse many expected. Its domestic numbers were modest, which helped delay a sequel for nearly a decade. And when that sequel finally arrived, audiences had completely moved on. Unfortunately for Jessica Alba, 2005 would end up being less of a breakthrough and more of a peak, because from that point forward, something strange happened. No matter what movie she appeared in, critics seemed ready to hate it before the opening credits even rolled. By the mid-2000s, Alba had become one of Hollywood's favorite punching bags. And to be fair, she wasn't always making their job difficult. Sometimes it genuinely felt like she was searching for projects that critics would enjoy destroying. One of those projects almost became Blood Rain, the video game adaptation, directed by the one and only Uwe Boll. Getting cast in a Uwe Boll movie during the 2000s was basically the Hollywood equivalent of stepping on a landmine. Alba actually came surprisingly close to signing on. What stopped her wasn't even the fact that it was a Uwe Boll movie. It was the nude scenes. Jessica has always refused to do nudity on screen, and Blood Rain required exactly that. Ironically, that decision may have saved her career from an even faster collapse. In 2007, Alba landed the female lead in Good Luck Chuck. Originally, the role was supposed to go to Jennifer Love Hewitt, but after multiple production delays, scheduling conflicts forced Hewitt to leave the project. Jessica stepped in. Looking at how everything turned out, it's hard to say which actress got luckier. The movie wasn't a box office disaster, but critics absolutely annihilated it. Audience scores weren't much better. Still, compared to what was coming later, this was far from the worst situation Alba would find herself in. Next came Awake, a thriller co-starring Hayden Christensen. At the time, putting Jessica Alba and Hayden Christensen in the same movie was practically a challenge directed at film critics. The movie looked doomed before cameras even started rolling. Surprisingly, audiences were much kinder than expected. Made for only $8 million, Awake earned $32 million worldwide and turned a respectable profit. Critics remained unconvinced. Both Alba and Christensen received Golden Raspberry nominations. By now, Alba clearly understood that critics weren't exactly on her side, and she genuinely seemed to be trying to change that. She started taking roles in smaller, more character-driven projects like Meet Bill, hoping to earn some critical respect. Unfortunately, the plan backfired. Critics disliked those movies even more, and because they were small films with limited releases, they couldn't even compensate with strong box office numbers. Instead of rebuilding her reputation, they simply added more fuel to the fire. Then came Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. This was supposed to be Alba's safety net. The sequel landed in an awkward middle ground. The studio looked at the numbers, decided the future wasn't bright enough, and eventually chose to reboot the entire franchise. By 2008, it was becoming increasingly clear that her window to become a major Hollywood superstar was closing. The supernatural horror film The Eye performed reasonably well financially. Naturally, critics rewarded her with another Golden Raspberry nomination. Then came The Love Guru. And this is where things went from bad to catastrophic. Mike Myers was already one of the biggest comedy stars in Hollywood. The Love Guru was supposed to be another hit. Instead, it became one of the most infamous comedy flops of the decade. Everybody hated it. The movie earned scores that hovered around 3 out of 10 from viewers. It effectively ended Mike Myers' career as a leading man. It damaged Jessica Alba's reputation even further. And somehow, Justin Timberlake walked away completely untouched. After taking a short break from the spotlight, Alba returned in 2010 with 4 movies. And while films like Valentine's Day, Machete, and Little Fockers all made money, they didn't really help her career. The movies succeeded. Jessica Alba didn't. Little Fockers even earned her a Golden Raspberry Award. By this point, the narrative around her career had become almost impossible to reverse. Starting in 2011, Alba began appearing less and less frequently. And when she did show up in movies, they were often projects that barely reached theaters. When films like Spy Kids 4 did make it to the big screen, they were mostly remembered for receiving terrible reviews. As the years passed, Alba gradually drifted away from Hollywood. If you're wondering what she's been doing recently, the answer is mostly staying away from it. Her biggest recent project was Trigger Warning on Netflix. At the time of writing, it proudly holds a mighty 4 out of 10 rating on IMDb. But here's the twist. Despite everything we've talked about so far, Jessica Alba's story is not actually a tragedy. Because while her acting career never became what many people expected, the rest of her life worked out spectacularly well. Around the same time her Hollywood career started losing momentum, Alba began focusing on business. In 2011, she helped launch The Honest Company. At the time, it was a small startup. A few years later, it was valued at roughly $1 billion. According to various reports, Alba owned approximately 20% of the company, which means that while Hollywood was busy debating whether Jessica Alba could act, Jessica Alba was quietly becoming extremely wealthy. These days, she doesn't need a movie career, she doesn't need a comeback. And according to Alba herself, she now chooses projects because she enjoys them, not because she needs the paycheck. Which brings us back to the original question. Why didn't Jessica Alba become one of Hollywood's biggest stars? The answer is probably a combination of bad timing, questionable project choices, and a long-running war with film critics that she never quite managed to win. But in the end, that may not matter very much. Unlike a lot of former stars, she doesn't need a comeback story. She already got her happy ending, it just happened outside the movie business. That was Frame Back. Subscribe for more rewinds and see you on the next one.